What are prions? Imagine the human body as a giant machine with gears working together to keep us alive and healthy. Each of these gears is made up of molecules, cells, and of course, proteins. Proteins are like small key pieces that perform important functions, such as building muscles, defending the body from invaders, and helping the brain function properly. Just as a machine needs each part in the right place and working well, our body also depends on proteins being folded correctly, that is, having the right shape to perform their functions. But what happens when one of these proteins misfolds in the wrong way? This can create a serious problem, and that's where prions come in. Prions are proteins that, for some reason, lost their proper shape and became defective. But it's not just that. Prions not only stop functioning, but they also have the terrifying ability to transform other healthy proteins into prions. It's like a defective part in a machine that starts damaging the others, causing a chain failure. This transformation of normal proteins into prions triggers a domino effect that primarily affects the brain. There, prions accumulate, destroy brain cells, and cause the brain to lose its ability to function properly. People begin to experience memory problems, motor coordination issues, and over time, the brain completely shuts down. The scariest part is that these prions are incredibly resistant. Unlike bacteria and viruses, which can be eliminated with medicine or by the body's own defenses, prions are almost indestructible. Even advanced sterilization methods like heat or strong chemicals can't completely destroy them. This means that once they enter the body, they are extremely difficult to fight. Diseases caused by prions. Now that you know what prions are, imagine what happens when these defective proteins start acting in the brain. It's as if you were building something with toy blocks and suddenly, one faulty block began to affect the others. Not only is it out of place, but it starts modifying the blocks around it until the entire structure begins to collapse. This is a simple way to understand what prions do inside the brain, and the result? Serious and devastating diseases. One of the most well-known prion diseases is mad cow disease, also called bovine spongiform encephalopathy. In the 1990s, this disease caught the world's attention when cows in some regions began losing control of their movements, displaying strange behavior and eventually dying. And what caused it? Prions. It is believed that these cows contracted the disease by consuming feed made from meat or bones of other animals contaminated with prions. Since prions can be passed from one animal to another, this practice of feeding animals with the remains of others was disastrous, spreading the disease through entire herds. In humans, the most common prion disease is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD. It's rare but very severe. People with this disease begin to show symptoms similar to dementia. They forget things, become confused, and over time, lose the ability to perform basic tasks like walking or talking. It's a devastating disease because it progresses rapidly, leading to death in a few months or years after the first signs appear. Another example is a disease called Kuru, recorded among a tribe in New Guinea. This tribe had a very peculiar custom. During funeral ceremonies, they ate the brains of the deceased, believing this brought them closer to their ancestors. However, what they didn't know was that they were ingesting prions present in the brains of people who had died. As a result, many members of this tribe began developing uncontrollable tremors, motor difficulties, and eventually died due to prions damaging their brains. This disease was a real mystery for a long time until scientists discovered the connection between eating contaminated meat and the onset of symptoms. These diseases have something in common. They irreversibly affect the brain, causing progressive degeneration that leads to death. And the most concerning part is that there is still no cure. Once prions start attacking, the process is practically impossible to stop. The only way to prevent these diseases is to avoid contact with prions, which can be a significant challenge since prions are extremely resistant and difficult to detect. How prions attack the brain. Now that we've talked about prion diseases, let's understand better how these invisible invaders work inside the brain. Imagine the brain as an organized city. with well-paved roads and buildings functioning perfectly. Healthy proteins are like workers in this city, making sure everything works as it should. When prions come into play, they act as saboteurs, gradually destroying that organization. The process starts silently. Prions enter the brain and approach healthy proteins. And here is where the evil magic happens. Prions can convince normal proteins to change shape and become prions as well. It's like a city worker being corrupted and starting to corrupt everyone else, one by one. Slowly, this uncontrolled transformation triggers a chain reaction. Over time, these defective proteins begin to group, forming plaques or clusters in the brain tissue. These plaques are extremely harmful because they destroy the surrounding nerve cells. Imagine that in the brain city, buildings begin to collapse and the streets fill with debris, making it impossible for the city to function normally. This attack on neurons, the brain cells, leads to the formation of holes in the brain tissue, which starts to resemble a sponge. For this reason, prion diseases are called spongiform diseases. With the brain damaged this way, people begin to lose their cognitive and motor abilities. They may have trouble walking, speaking, thinking, and even performing simple tasks like eating or dressing. All this happens because the brain is literally being destroyed from the inside. This process is relentless. Brain functions gradually worsen until the brain, responsible for controlling all aspects of the body, stops functioning entirely. This is the tragic fate of those who fall victim to prion diseases. Prions, silent transmission. One of the most dangerous characteristics of prions is that they can be transmitted without the person realizing it. This is because, unlike many other diseases, prions can remain hidden in the body for years before causing symptoms. During this time, the person appears healthy, but the brain is already being slowly damaged. Prions can be transmitted in several ways. One is through the consumption of contaminated meat, as happened with mad cow disease. Another form of transmission is during medical procedures like surgeries or blood transfusions, if there is contact with contaminated materials. And the most frightening part is that prions are not easily destroyed, not even by sterilization methods used in hospitals. This makes prion diseases difficult to control and very dangerous. The mystery of resistance and vulnerability. An interesting fact about prions is that not everyone is affected the same way. Some people may be exposed to prions and never develop the disease, while others become ill quickly. Scientists believe this may be related to genetic factors, meaning something in a person's DNA may make them more resistant or vulnerable. We still don't fully understand why this happens. It's as if some people's bodies have a protective barrier that prevents prions from causing as much damage. In others, this barrier is weaker or non-existent, allowing prions to attack more aggressively. This mystery remains one of the major challenges for scientists studying these diseases. The struggle to diagnose prion diseases. Diagnosing someone with a prion disease is a major challenge. This is because, at first, the symptoms resemble those of other brain diseases, such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. People may start forgetting things, having difficulty moving, or thinking clearly, making an accurate diagnosis difficult at the outset. Additionally, there isn't a simple test, like a blood test, to detect prions. Most of the time, doctors need to observe symptoms, perform neurological exams, and in some cases, even collect a small brain sample to confirm the presence of prions. This makes diagnosis difficult and often late when the disease is already too advanced. Is there a cure? Unfortunately, at this time, there is no cure for prion diseases. Scientists are working hard to understand better how these proteins work, but prions are very difficult to fight. They do not respond to traditional medications like those used against viruses or bacteria. Currently, the available treatments only help alleviate some symptoms or slow the progression of the disease, but they cannot reverse the damage that has already been done to the brain. However, research continues, and scientists haven't given up on finding a solution. Many studies are being conducted to try to develop ways to block or stop the action of prions. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to the channel.